You don't have to agree with anything later that you say when you're on here. It's like this is a space for just like, here's how I feel in this moment, So you don't have to.
Well, one of the things I remember talking to you about is, and I don't know how this came up, but having to say something to see how you feel about it.
Right. Yeah.
And I have the same affliction.
Yeah. You just say things, and then somebody's like, "That's not right," and you're like, "Yeah, maybe that isn't right." Like I don't need to be tied to. It's just fun to say. I
just said it.
Yeah.
I just said it. Doesn't mean like.
Yeah.
Which can be a problem.
Yeah.
Especially if you're being recorded.
Yeah.
Visually and audioly.
Yeah, I mean, no one's, this is episode 62. No one's gotten canceled yet. I think people usually are worried about that. Then they just...
Really?
When they start, but then 5-10 minutes into it, it's like you forget, and then it's like, So, yeah, it's not...
So we'll chop off the first 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, I usually do.
Cool.
But yeah, we've talked a lot. That's one of the reasons I was interested in talking to you is I think you're like very like non-categorizable type of person, which I consider myself that way,
I like that.
As far as like, yeah, you're like in the science world, but you also like appreciate comedy and, you don't seem to be, I don't know. It's a very like, whose side are you on kind of culture right now. And I think through our conversations at work, you seem like you sort of are just a little beyond that, which is refreshing.
Yeah. I think I'm beyond, in some ways I'm beyond that. I also think and sometimes this is to my detriment, I can be a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Like contradict yourself?
Yeah.
Or just like, yeah.
Well, I can fit in a lot of situations, a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
A lot of, and I think sometimes there's an element of like, what do I really think?
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to what we were saying.
Yeah. I
have to experience something to figure out how or say it or be a part of it. So that's an interesting observation. I appreciate that. But I think there's like a pro and a con to that, where it's like, what is the true, like, how do I truly feel? Where can I truly be categorized? Well, maybe I can't be, but that can have a downside, I guess. Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
I'm tracking all of it. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I think it's more evolved and honest to be a chameleon. I think it's people come up with these fake constructs. They're like, I hang out with these people. I agree with these points. We hate these other ones over there. And that's kind of like less honest, is you're just kind of like trying to get approval. Whereas kind of being like, I don't know, like I'm working on this bit now about how I went and my brothers-in-law all love guns, and I'd just never been around guns, and it's always been more like left. And we spent the whole day shooting guns, and they like put explosives in a toilet, and we shot it and blew it up. And it was the most fun day of my entire life. I was like, so I'm hanging out with these guys. It's gonna be like this today. Like I don't need to be like, I have some liberal ideas I'm gonna be talking about all day. I'm like, no, I'm just like the chameleon thing. It's like, let yourself be influenced. Let yourself hang out with everybody. Why not? That's what we need. It's more evolved. It's more honest.
You are picking up what I'm putting down, because I can agree with all that.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I'll ask you how many guns you think I own.
Man, that's tough, because I could go 0 up to multiple. I mean, the Midwest, but then like...
I said afterwards.
Yeah. Go ahead. When we're off the air, yeah.
I own one gun.
Okay.
I'll just say it.
Yeah.
It's for hunting purposes.
Yeah.
That's the Midwest.
Yeah.
You can't go through 33 years in the Midwest, especially Wisconsin, and not at least dabble in that world, especially if you're a chameleon.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. So, right. I mean, sometimes, well, I think it's because life is weird, right?
Yeah.
Life is tough to make sense of. So if you can put a framework around it and categorize yourself, that can give you a way to view things. And I think that's sort of a big part of the human condition, is trying to find that kind of structure, because there's sort of an emptiness. Well, you could say there's a fullness, but there's, how do you make sense of us being here? That's a really difficult question. Here meaning in existence. So not to kind of go to a crazy
No, we should
direction
go too
with
crazy.
you, but
Like consciousness, you know?
yeah.
Just like, what
Right.
is it?
So like, you know,
If you're like, hey, I hang out with this club on Tuesdays, and it can kind of help you navigate. You're not just like,
yeah.
what am I? You're kind of
Right.
like, all right, I'm not gonna go crazy asking myself that because I go to this church and I hang out. This is my favorite sports team.
And it could be even more abstract than that. Just like maybe you're not joining the softball team because you're afraid of the emptiness so much as it's easier to go through. Well, yeah, I mean, you are kind of. It starts as from an abstract level, finding an identity, finding an ego, which, you know, a lot of the spiritual teachings say is sort of the downfall is having an ego.
Yeah.
And then, that eventually becomes who you are and joining a softball team. And I'm not advocating not joining softball teams, but
Fuck softball teams. That's what.
yeah. Slow pitch. Come on.
Yeah, I feel like once you get into that, though, it can be maybe harder to like. I think it's natural to be different versions of yourself every like 10 years, or
100%.
especially if you move to a new place or you get into comedy or music or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm gonna let myself kind of be influenced and yeah. But I guess like maybe the flip side of that is like it can be a little more uncertain, like you're saying, a little more like if you don't know who you are,
be scary.
it can be scary, lonely,
Identity
that kind
crisis.
of thing.
So have you found, to me, it seems like as you age, you can become more comfortable. What was the first point you made? Oh, yes. With the changes, allowing yourself to fundamentally change.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to let go of things that and I found that that's still hard to do, but I found that it's become easier as I've gotten a little bit older. Has that been a similar
for sure.
experience for you?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I'm 45, so I didn't start doing comedy till I was like 10 years ago. I was 35. Like I needed to be that age just to even be like up there. Like I couldn't handle it even trying to do that in my 20s, you know? Like I think I was kind of more like, I'm an indie rock guy, and this is what it was like kind of safer to be in an identity instead of being like, what is my voice? I'm going to go up and experiment. So yeah, getting older has definitely helped with that. And then this podcast is like a year old. So this is like the next, to me, this is like another more just open, vulnerable kind of like, it could be anything, you know? I don't know what we'll be talking about in 5 minutes. So that's like, getting older has really helped me be like, it doesn't fucking matter. I don't know, when you're young, you're like, what if people are gonna watch this? And it's like no one cares about you. Everyone's
matter.
thinking about themselves. Like just
It doesn't matter.
yeah, it doesn't matter
I
at
love
all.
that.
Yeah, just like be bold, put yourself out there, do crazy shit. Like I don't know, nothing bad's happened so far.
So what?
A lot of good things have happened from doing it. So it's like a lot of good shit, no bad shit. I'll just keep doing this.
So what was the impetus for comedy? What does comedy do for you? I mean, what has drawn you to it? I mean, you seem to enjoy the craft.
Oh yeah.
So like, what does it do for you? What drew you to it? How did that? You know, maybe you've waxed poetic on this podcast about this already, but just for my edification, how did you get to this?
Well, after I had my first kid, I was like still kind of like, you know, doing a lot of like, I did like sad country music, like alt country, and then I did like yelling Pixies stuff. And when I got to like my mid 30s with a kid, I was like, you know, I don't know if I really need to go be sad on stage. I think I want to be like trying to make people laugh, and like sound checking and carrying all your equipment in takes a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time because I have kids. Just walking in, stool, microphone. Like I just started trying comedy, and then I was like, this is so much, like 5 minutes of comedy more will happen than 2 hours of playing a band show. You know, you're in a band, you're just kind of in the corner. People are kind of paying attention. 5 minutes of comedy, it's like, whoa. Yeah, you're just like brutally humiliated beyond all doubt. Or you're like, I did it. They laughed, you know? So I just, it's kind of, you take away comedy, I'm like career dad. Like there's not a lot. It's my whole hero's journey, you know? So
it was the next step beyond music.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a continuation of music for you.
Totally. Writing, performing, having community, finding your voice. Yeah, exactly. I went, music to like music distilled down to its rawest.
Yeah.
No guitar to hide behind, just a stool.
Well, I mean, like music's supposed to be, good music does this, make you feel things, make you consider things.
Yeah.
But obviously that's in a more abstract route than, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah, exactly.
So I understand that. That's really interesting.
Because you're a musician as well, right?
I am.
Yeah. We should play sometime when
We should play.
you should come back to the shed and I'll set it up for music.
I love it. I would definitely do that. But I haven't played on stage since like high school, and I've been threatening to do that since high school, to do it again since high school. I really think that I should. I enjoy it, but what's particularly interesting is you mentioned a number of genres you bounced around from, like sad country to alt indie. So I mean, right there is sort of a chameleon aspect.
Yeah, within like the white dude stuff, like, I'm pretty chameleon-y, but yeah, never like gone full on like. But yeah, I mean
Interesting. And then
kind of like the spectrum that Wilco does. I did all that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
From punk to country, which I used to think was like really broad, but now I'm like, yeah, it's still like white dude.
Well, and then what's funny is like if you go a little bit further into like the music's like fundamental theory, it's not that far from things that you wouldn't say are white dude, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it in the Western canon kind of comes from the same, I don't know, roots or whatever.
Yeah.
But okay, but comedy allowed you to be more direct with what you're trying to do on stage.
Yeah, and just feel more alive. Like after 20 years of like playing music, and then you're in like a brewery and you play for 2 hours, and you're like, was that good or bad? I don't even know. You know, we're kind of background music, like just the first comedy sets were like, holy shit! Like this is like, it's just like a cold plunge. You know, it's just like not to get, that's a way cliche comedy podcast topic, but it was just so invigorating. I was just like, whoa, you know, I really like extreme stuff, you know. So that was just like very like comedy is just feels so extreme.
It's so funny because you're so like chill,
really,
as a person.
Yeah, my wife would not say that, but yeah, it's nice that I can present that way.
Well, chameleon,
yeah. Because I feel like in our work environment, I'm like just too crazy for that. You know, everyone's like so quiet, and like I just feel like I'm sure that I've offended people and not known it just by being. But again, it's like you just project. It's like your own insecurities. Like maybe that's not even. Yeah. It's like being on this podcast. It's like, what if people like no one. People think about themselves. No one's really sitting around thinking about me.
Well, and I think that's interesting. That goes back to what you were saying recently or earlier about how, you know, our society is so much about who are you, and then be opposed to people who are different than you,
right?
And being so worried about being different and having oppositions and afraid to express who you are. And, you know, like you shouldn't have offensive viewpoints, but I think most of us don't.
Yeah.
But then like suddenly you think the things that your experiences, your life can't be expressed. So no, I don't think you've offended anybody at work.
That's nice.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Although I have wondered about that myself sometimes. You're like, oh, what did I just say?
Yeah.
But I you know, again, I also had that as an insecurity. So
yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like I am aware of like what the tone is and how we're supposed to like work environment's very like environmental, very like. You know, I guess that's associated with the left. Like my comedy scene in Asheville is like very much that way too. You know, I have lots of like trans friends, and so it's like, you know, I consider myself to be very progressive, but I also really enjoy going to like out to a rural place where people are like not worried about any of those things that are the core values of like work and comedy. And I think those people have like their own set of strengths, and they are geniuses in ways that like, you know, my like left educated friends are like, oh, those, you know, they're dumb out. It's like, no, they're not. Like those folks. So I always kind of feel like when, you know, I mean, I've said this a lot on the podcast, but when I'm out at a rural place, I'm like the gayest liberal they've ever seen, you know? And then in my liberal world in Asheville, I say things sometimes where people are like, what, he's in his 40s? Is he like a Republican? You know, and I'm like I can just feel that, you know, I refuse to fit into the lore of either, but it can be hard. Like I'm always kind of worried that I'm like one word away from being like excommunicated from places, just by trying to be in the middle.
I totally get it. I've had similar experiences. And I totally agree that folks who live in rural settings who might vote a certain way, it's a different set of strengths for sure, but just as many and just as strong.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
One thing that I saw, we just had the hurricane here, and there was incredible recovery efforts ongoing, right?
Yeah.
And people are expressing their political views related to the disaster on the internet, which obviously. But so someone was talking about Trump and what Trump would do, and the people voting for Trump, and a comment below was, just so you know, the Trump voters are the ones clearing your roads right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Operating the trucks.
Yeah.
Driving in water tankers from their construction sites.
Absolutely.
So just put that on hold for now.
Yeah.
And that could go, I understand there are issues. People feel very strongly. That's perfectly all right. But understand that we're all at some level, we're on this together.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So no, I know what you mean. Next month I'm going deer hunting in rural Wisconsin, actually this month.
Hell yeah.
And, that's a very different experience than going out to the breweries around here. I love them both.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what, so.
Yeah. Well, how do we get to where every election is 1%, less than a 1% margin? What happened to being able to just work in those worlds? One of the things that really bothers me right now is the way people use the word fascism. I've noticed that a lot of really smart, wonderful, people that are on the left that are in totally my arts world are being basically saying people that are choosing a different candidate are fascists. And I'm just when you start dehumanizing the people that are, that is just, that is so wrong to do that. And yeah, like you said, it's the people that are clearing the roads and chainsawing the trees, those are mostly people on the right, and those are strong people. Be respectful.
They're not fascists.
Yeah, they're not fascists. They're really not. And it's, this is funny that the election's tomorrow. We're recording this, so this is the height of just this insane.
So we might all be gone tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen?
I know. But
this might be the last you hear from us.
When I eventually found a little iPod that had a radio when we had no power or internet or anything, and the only station that came in was Kiss Country, which I've never listened to, and it was the most uplifting, wonderfully supportive. It was just yeah, that's who you want when their shit goes down. You want the people that are those folks that know how to do real work and are prepared. It's why would you call those people evil? You're going to need those people. They're good people. I don't know. It's very sad, the state of affairs right now.
It's sad. People just have different lives and different sets of concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I think my first instinct, and maybe I'm naive, and sounds like you too, is to just appreciate those people's concerns, even if it's a lifestyle different than yours, and give them the benefit of the doubt that they're legitimate and they're coming from a place of a genuine set of needs, not some sort of I don't know, more less charitable interpretation of and this goes for both sides. I'm not saying I'm in one side or the other. This is for all sides, just different lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe cultures are separating more and more over time, and the sets of concerns but the problem is that the people in power then take advantage of any and all of this.
Right. And the internet's designed to drive it that way too.
Literally designed, studied. There are people who've made a lot of money doing these sorts of, the people doing the studies aren't making as much as the ones taking advantage of the studies, but there are studies. How do you get people to pay attention to something?
Yeah. Get them upset.
Pissed off.
Yeah. 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 We've talked about that before at work too. I appreciate that you kind of, you have experience with software, but also with science. So I think you seem like a different kind of academic to me. I think I'm always kind of mistrustful of people that you have a Ph.D. You're one of the real ones who you seem like you you've done all those things, but that's not the end all be all. It's just because you have letters by your name doesn't mean that you are, can actually do work or produce results or anything like that. And I think there are academics who are like, well, I have the letters there now, so I will be just not doing shit for the rest of my life and expecting to be.
You will respect me.
Yeah. And we've also talked about, I'm in software now professionally, and that's like, those are the folks that are driving the evil, like, engagement clicks and stuff like that. So this willingness to like look at your own group that you benefit from and be able to see be able to criticize who you are, I think that's something I appreciate about you, instead of being like, my team's all good, fuck them, which just seems to be the general tone online these days.
Yeah. I mean, in many walks of life. So yeah, I mean, boy, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I from a personal standpoint, I haven't really thought about why I am not the way you describe some folks with PhDs. I haven't really thought of, I don't know. I just, maybe my motivations are to get to more of a correct answer on things, or, I'm not sure of why I am that way, but I've definitely become of the fact that I do have more of a, I'm not afraid to dive into some of this software stuff, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the folks that are in my field, not necessarily where we work, but in general, once you reach a certain point in the science, there's less interest in using some of the software tools that folks like you are very familiar with, and I just think you're only getting half of the solution if you don't do that.
I think it's just like human nature. Like, I want to stay at the things I'm good at.
Yeah.
I don't want to look dumb. You think it's maybe some of that?
Yeah, and I before graduate school I was a mechanical engineer for 6 years, and maybe it's just like a restlessness.
Yeah,
I don't know. On to the next thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Right now, the next thing is software tools to do the science, and I think that's also where the most exciting science is. The software tools are such that, in my estimation, they now are guiding the science.
Mm-hmm.
The software tools are advancing at such a pace that, climate science is going as far as the technology is taking it. That's where the new exciting climate science is how do we use technology to do this science? And I think the field at large outside of the tech-driven part of it is slightly stagnating.
Yeah.
And I think science can be used as a tool for power too. So there's an element of that going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, science is real, by the way.
We're not saying anything other than that. Science is entirely real, but science is not black and white.
Yeah.
Science is extraordinarily gray.
What about this? And there's things that are also true that we can't measure with science, yet or maybe ever. So it's like science is real and important. Climate change is totally real. But there's also other things that are real that, just because it can't be proven doesn't mean it's not worth considering as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of gray within the bounds of our five senses that that gray between the black and white in science can be taken advantage of. But also, there are things outside of our five. If we can go to the next level out of the the target, if you want to call it that. Science relies on our five senses, and if you think that our five senses are entirely encapsulate all of existence, I would disagree with you.
Yeah,
and so if you feel that our five senses are not the end all be all, there are things outside of science. I'm not sure how much that affects climate science. I personally don't think that like God is punishing us with hurricanes, for instance.
Yeah, I don't think that either.
Okay, good.
I mean, I guess, maybe God depends on what God is. I mean, maybe, that's a word that's just
I agree.
It's crazy, but it's useful, you know. I mean, I have no problem with even using the word God anymore. I try not to gender God
either.
because I have 2 daughters. That's like one new update I've made. But yeah, what you're describing to me almost does kind of go back to the ego thing we started with, because it seems like, there's some being able to be like fluid and on to the next thing. It's almost like, to me, that sounds a little less rigid in your ego, kind of more. I don't know, maybe like, because I'm like that too, but maybe there also is a part of the ego where it's like you want to, I don't know if you consider yourself like ambitious. It's like, I'm going to keep redefining myself, and it's like you get bored with things, so you have to challenge yourself to be like, well, you know, you could have just stayed an engineer like most people do. They're like, well, I've done this. I'm not going to go back to school. That's hard. I'm just going to stay here.
It would have been easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have bought a house and been on my way back in Wisconsin with that life, you know. Tell me, I have some other thoughts of why, you know, what might drive some of this for me. I found that I feel almost maybe the most motivated when I'm having to prove myself. And there are different ways that can be described. It's almost like I thrive on, another way to say it is maybe from a more negative point of view, is I thrive on disrespect.
Okay.
I mean, these are all different ways to sort of say the same thing. So when I've really felt motivated, it's when at the beginning of a new branch of my career, I guess. I don't want to define myself only by my career, and I need to prove myself.
And people are like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's almost like it threatens them. It's like, you think you can just do some whole new thing? I never did that. I don't even want you to succeed at this.
It's not so much that, just proving that I can hang.
Yeah.
More so. Not necessarily that I need to prove them wrong, or like prove that your way is the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But just, I don't know. Have you thought that at all? Like when you started in comedy and you know, you were new on the scene. I mean, what did that feel like? And was that motivating?
I wish I was more that way. I think I've gotten more that way as my skin's gotten thicker, but I think I probably do like to have some support. I think if it's too much, if I can feel that like too much people are like want to see me fail, or I've made too many adversaries, that can be, I wish I could that turned into fuel, but if, at a certain point it starts to be too overwhelming. And I've been in that position where I've like made too many, I don't know, gotten in over my head, and you could feel people be like, ooh, let's see if he could do it.
Well, I guess comedy is a little bit different than like a new job, because at my, you know, when you get a new job, there's not a crowd of people waiting to, you know, I don't know, not laugh at you or whatever. I mean, it's different, I guess, when you're on stage. The disapproval is very immediate, and the approval is very immediate.
Do you do other stuff? Like, do you like run ultra marathons or something? You're kind of describing a personality type, or I would think you might do some other extreme things.
I do a cross-country ski marathon every winter in Wisconsin.
Okay.
That's a 31-mile race. So a little bit extreme, but no ultra marathons. I'm starting to get into mountain running around here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the best. Yeah.
Do you do that?
I run. Yeah. I don't have time to drive to the mountains, so I run around my neighborhood.
Well, the mountains are pretty, I mean.
Yeah, that's true. Like this neighborhood is technically
hills.
It's paved, but it's, and I mean, I love it. It's, I gotten to where I just run like 4 slow miles 3 times a week.
That's perfect.
I get hurt if I go past that. So I used to be like run far and fast, and now I'm just that like middle-aged dude that just.
I mean, I'm not doing much more than that either. I don't. I
love it though.
So do I.
It's one of the few things that quiets my brain.
I agree.
My brain is just always just.
So is mine. Yep.
Which can be good, and it's hard to turn it off. So running kind of turns it off.
Totally agree. I can feel when I need to go for a run.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So does it turn your brain off just because it makes you tired, or?
It's probably part of it. But then I think it's like a breathing, it's like a rhythm thing. Like, I mean, I really like playing drums. It's like there's these physical, I hang upside down a lot. Like there's these certain things where it's like, it's so
just going to throw
physical.
that in?
Yeah.
You're just going to, I hang upside down a lot.
I hang upside down. I love hanging upside down. It's
Tell me about that.
Well, like I had a lot of neck problems like a few years ago from like having bad posture and guitar and computering, and I've got these boots, where I get in a pull-up bar and I can hang upside down, and it's just sitting is weird. I like lying down, but hanging upside down is the most comfortable position for your body to be in. It just hangs from your feet, like your whole spine and vertebrae stretches. It's like all the blood rushes. I think shit gets stuck in your feet. You know how people have like something, like you'll have like circulation issues in your feet because it's hard to get back up and things will break off and give you a heart attack. I have all these crazy theories, but it's circulation, and sometimes I'll get stuck on a coding problem and I'll hang upside down, and when I flip back over, I have the answer.
Wow. There's like such a like what's the word, analogy there? I don't know. Corollary.
It's like salad dressing.
Parable.
It's our bodies. I think we separate, and like you want to
symbolism.
Yeah,
the symbolism of hanging upside down.
Yeah,
and
inverting your world.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's almost like too clean. Like, wow, really interesting. Well, what's so interesting is it seems like a lot of the healthy things you're supposed to do have roots in like the way cavemen did things.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, maybe that's just like a white people fad, but like the paleo diet, like, oh, did you know they ate like 6 pounds of meat every day?
Yeah.
And like, that was it, But I don't think that cavemen were hanging upside down. So I'm wondering like where, like
they're probably doing handstands against the cave wall or something though.
They could have been. They could have been.
Yeah, I guess there weren't. But if you go back far enough, like I think our spines were horizontal. I mean, evolution.
Oh,
so I think that
I was not understanding what you were saying.
Yeah,
wait, you believe in evolution?
Yeah, I know.
So do I.
For this, and I'm like, there's some. They say that the spine being vertical, like it's just.
I see now.
Yeah, and like your organs are kind of meant to. So I don't know. I don't really.
Yeah, the horizontal thing. I mean, I think the sitting is where.
Oh yeah.
So introducing as much sitting as we do in life, that could throw the whole thing out of whack. Where being upside down, is what you need to do.
It's the other way. I mean, I have all kinds of crazy theories. Like I believe that like Alzheimer's could be a blood flow to the brain issue, like it, and hanging upside down. We haven't studied it yet, but I think it could help with Alzheimer's, which I really don't want to get.
Great segue, because speaking of science, and science being misused. The prevailing theory on Alzheimer's is sort of in question at the moment. And I think that prevailing theory benefited pharmaceutical interests. And those interests will be resisting any new theory. So that's a case where, science, which we perceive as being this black and white pure pursuit, can be readily misused for profit motive. And I don't know that the particular something about plaque in the brain or whatever. And I've heard recently that theory is in question.
Okay.
And, but no, I don't want Alzheimer's either.
Yeah.
I've also heard that it could be a related to like almost like a diabetes of the brain.
Yeah. That means blood flow, right?
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Like clogged.
I'm pretty far over my skis here, but
anyways,
yeah, good. Okay, so an anti-Alzheimer's trick.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like to just have my own, like I just I model it in my mind that like, this circulation is really important for your health. So stuff gets stuck in your feet, I can just feel that, and you hang upside down, it just, I can just visualize the energy or,
Are you saying you're doing your own research?
Well,
don't you know that we're not supposed to do that?
I know. I just really,
as a PhD doctor, I need to step in here.
Yeah, I know. That's it does get a little like if I start talking too much about that stuff, it does start to sound pretty uncredible. My wife's just always like, you can't just make up. Like, I mean, the Earth's round.
You can.
The Earth's round for sure, but there are some things where I'm just kind of like.
I mean, I'll go along.
It was this, it's kind of like what you said at the beginning. Like I'm just saying things, and then I might listen back in a few months and be like, "What the hell was that?" But that's okay. I'm just like spitballing thoughts. As soon as I don't think about them, I just say them. You bounce them off you. It leads to something else.
Here's the round Earth thing.
Yeah,
that was a very defeated. Yeah.
was like, oh no. I will have to cut this out so you can keep your job.
You won't have to cut this out.
I'm just kidding.
Here's my.
I trust where you're going with this.
Good. You should. So there's the round Earth theory and the flat Earth theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
I study climate. I have a Ph.D. in atmospheric science.
Mm-hmm.
Math checks out. Weather works because of the shape of the Earth, the spin of the Earth. You know, we can see the Earth from satellites.
Yeah.
We can see pictures of Earth from the moon, if you believe we went there.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've never been on a satellite. I've never been on the moon. Like, it could be a massive conspiracy.
Yeah.
That someone, all the math that I learned that checked out, someone could have just, like, come up with all that.
Yeah.
That is what's sort of tough about some of these questions. It's like, you have to have a certain amount of trust.
Yeah, there's a faith involved in it, right? Because you have to build your things on top. You have to assume that.
The only thing I know to be true right now is that, like,
yeah,
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, and even that.
I mean,
that could be.
You
could
never know.
You know, wearing a straitjacket in some room. Just imagine it all of it.
I mean, I've seen The Matrix. I have seen The Matrix.
Yeah.
That was a documentary.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Do you like the Matrix movies?
Honestly, I don't even remember.
Okay.
I know that it's like there's like
simulation.
A simulation.
I don't think
involved.
we had that language back then. But
we did not. I guess. I'm not a big movie person.
I'm not either.
Oh,
do you watch shows?
I watch shows.
Okay.
I watch shows. I like shows.
Yeah.
Shows are good. I like shows, but now I don't know why movies were not really a part of my experience growing up. My parents didn't watch. We didn't watch movies.
TV.
We had TV. We watched TV. We watched a lot of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Which we've touched on as well in our musings.
Yeah.
Watched a lot of Seinfeld. We watched. My wife and I watched Seinfeld last night. So we watch shows. Just no movies. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Why that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of them are pretty bad. Maybe that's why.
That could be. It's a big time commitment.
Yeah.
I like to.
That's why I don't watch shows, because shows are like.
Oh, you don't watch shows?
No, they're like, you got to watch Sopranos. It's like 800 hours. I'm just like, good Lord. Like, that's why I'm doing this shit, because I don't. I mean, I would enjoy it, but it's like my time is. I got kids, so like I literally look at my time.
I suspect
so carefully.
Having kids changes a lot.
Yeah, that's like I would not be doing any of this without kids. This is the thing I've said on here, that like there's this worry that like if you have kids, you'll stop doing cool shit because you don't have any time. But it was the opposite for me. I spent my 20s just sitting around in bars till they closed, doing nothing. But then as soon as I had so little time, that was like, I better start doing some cool stuff with the 8 hours a week that I can allocate to my own pursuits.
That's actually kind of refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Because at some point, hopefully we'll have kids, and I'm sort of, dreading that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I guess it makes sense. If it becomes more of a premium, you become more intentional about it.
Yeah. You value it more. Yeah. It's kind of like if you had to buy a CD, you'd go home and listen to it enough times till you liked it. Whereas like now you can stream everything for free. You don't even like make the most of it. It's this weird counterintuitive thing. When it's harder, you appreciate it more.
Life is less intentional now, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's...
Yeah, you have to fight because it's just the sheer number of bytes being crammed into your brain every day.
Yeah.
From other places, Slack and email and the threads.
Intentionality is hard. Even, do you do any meditation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm into meditation.
So do I. Just dabbling, but...
Yeah. Not as much as I should lately.
Yeah, me either. But just the idea that... it's so easy, and that this might not be because of our times and society these days. This just could be a part of the human condition, but having the wherewithal to be intentional about your actions and view your life from above,
mm-hmm.
It's very easy just to always be acting, I would say in the moment, but that's not really it, because meditation is supposed to make you be more in the moment. But just being out of control of your life. I mean,
like
there's just
reactively living.
Living.
Like we are on Slack together at work,
yeah.
And I proudly don't see 90 whatever %. I'm like, if it's that important, people will tell me, and I'm not gonna be worried anymore that I'm upsetting people. Maybe I am, and that's part of my thing earlier. I'm like, maybe people don't like me, but it's like I at the end of the year, I'll get so much cool shit done for you because I'm intentional about my time and energy. For me, it's actually energy more than time. I've just realized that I have kind of like, I think I'm on the ADHD spectrum where I'm kind of like, I'll get laser focused and into something, and then I'll just not have the energy. And this factory 9 to 5 construct has no, you got to chase your enthusiasm and your energy. And if I'm responding to Slack messages or even just trying to read all of them, the whole thing is just destroyed. It's reactive living, and then it's like, where did the week go? Where did the day go?
I have to learn from you. I think I'm like addicted to reading every Slack message, and I'd be curious what that is doing to my productivity as well.
Do you do it like? Do you enjoy it, or do you do it because you're like? Does it come from a place of like obligation or worry, or is it like, no, I like being on Slack and seeing the. Do you enjoy? Because if it's good for you, then
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It takes courage
I'll have to meditate on that. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think I'm probably kind of the same way with like texts and emails as well. I don't like to be connected, but I feel like I think sometimes there's like an anxiety about what the message might say.
Yeah. Yeah. The one time you don't check will be the time they're like,
I don't know.
If you don't want to be fired, you better. James is the only one that didn't respond.
Stand up and do 5 jumping jacks immediately or something. Yeah. There's some of that. One thing that kind of relates to what we were talking about with, I guess how I've shaped my career or whatever is also a need for approval.
Yeah. I struggle with that.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think I'm getting better as I get older and more deriving self-worth like more internally.
Yeah.
But like, and I'm not saying I'm special. A lot of people are this way, but needing the approval of other people is I think a big part of, especially when I was young. But I wonder if that factors into the Slack thing too.
Yeah.
Being there.
Yeah, I definitely have, like, meditation for me is like me seeing that, like seeing, oh, I'm worried about approval. And that's what's so helpful about it.
Absolutely.
I still have to deal with it, but I actually, am watching myself be that way. And that's like a hard thing for me to admit that I'm like an achiever type. You seem like an achiever type too, but like some of that, I'm not sure how much of it comes from a place of like needing approval and then also caring about status. Like, and that's a thing, like philosophically, I'm like, punk rock atheist, I don't give a shit about, but then if I'm being really honest, like I do care about my status in these different groups, and man, I'm really trying to, like, by the time I get real old, to unravel that one. And meditation just helps me at least see that. And I've only gotten to the age now where I can even admit it into a microphone. I think 10 years ago I would have been like, no, I'm not. Like I wouldn't even admit it to myself,
I do know. Actually, that's been a lot of my meditation experience too, and work with a therapist, which I recommend to anyone.
Yeah.
Is right that I do. Yeah. You the achiever thing. I think I also could be put in that category, but it's trying to figure out, is that an internal motivate? Like why is that?
Yeah. Where's it come from?
I'm pretty much have experienced the same thing as you. Is that external? Is that internal? Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? But I think you can also beat these problems to death. And the thing about it is, there's probably an unhealthy explanation and a healthy explanation.
Yeah,
that both are true.
Yeah, but if you tell yourself the healthy one every day, maybe that's just enough to. Do you need to solve every Socratic like riddle? Like it's like, how do you even navigate that? I think for me though, some of it comes from like, I believe like you have family like trauma or DNA that's like in you that not everybody else has. Emily was telling me about some experiment where they like they had like mice and they would smell like some rose smell. Have you heard this? And then they would shock them every time they smelled it. Some horrible mice experiment. But then like the kids of the rats or mice would still, it was like in their DNA.
Epigenetics. It's called epigenetics.
Yeah. Okay. The epigenetics. So I think that there might be something in my family where I'm like more predisposed to that, and I don't know. Like, I almost feel like it comes from a place where there's some part of me that's like, if my village disapproves of me or I upset them, which goes back to the whole political thing where I'm always worried or that there's some part of me that's like, they're going to cast me out into the woods if I don't play by the rules, you know, and then I'll starve to death. Like there's some really irrational old thing in me that's like, I need to be approved of to survive, which is kind of not really true. It's almost like you can kind of thrive in some ways more by going against the grain today, but I've like programmed, there's something in me from like generations that I'm trying to undo.
Do you think that is specific to you or like a part of the human condition?
I don't know. That's what I love about these conversations, because you feel like it's just you, and then somebody else might be like, oh, I relate to that. I know that I see it in my family. So, I mean, it's like all the triggers. So I feel pretty confident commenting on my family, but then, yeah, I mean, outside of that, that's one of the goals of this podcast, is kind of broaden my experience of what other people are.
And there can also be like for me too, you know, there are dynamics in your immediate family, you know, like my brother is different in that way. He's like totally comfortable in who he is. He's just like rocking it, you know, much more chill as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And totally comfortable in what he's doing. Always makes the right decision. It seems like just a different style of kind of going about at least career and sort of life, I guess. And so, you know, I'm older. He's younger. There's kind of that dynamic where, as the oldest, I got used to a lot of attention, and probably got a lot of attention being the oldest, and then it was different when he came along, and so there's probably that dynamic as well.
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me as well. Yeah, I wonder if like I almost think as the achiever, it's kind of hard it's hard to imagine you can achieve a lot if you don't kind of have this insatiable need to be approved of or validated. Right. Like it's a double-edged thing where like, yeah, there's a part of me that's like, I don't need to be doing any of this comedy podcast. Just like keep one job. I'd maybe be happier. But then I'm also like, I want to do a bunch of cool shit. What's the next thing? Dude. I'm bored, you know? So it's like, but at this point I am like, it is who I am. So I'm not going to fight my nature. And that's a new like middle-aged thing. It's
I like that.
There's not enough time left to like, it's too late. I mean, I am who I am, so
it's not too late.
I mean, yeah, that was
don't
the wrong,
start talking that way.
That was the wrong.
But
language.
But we're all mortal.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's not. Maybe the phrasing is it's too late. Maybe that's not good. Maybe the better phrasing is like YOLO.
I mean, I think of like humanity as like a bunch of ants or something, where it's like, you know, the organism is actually the whole of us, you know, whereas it looks good. Like you're like, I'm one, you're a different one, but really it's like we're all kind of thoughts and, you know, society. So I think that it makes sense that there would need to be a lot of different kinds of people to complement each other too. So it's like, it is really interesting that you and your brother, you know, same family, all that, but you can be so different. And like my kids, they're so different.
And it's funny because if he sat here, he'd be like, he's not different than you. So like within the bounds of, but anyway, so your own kids, you see a little bit of some of that.
Yeah. And definitely some of that, like the older kid, maybe a little more like the stereotype of like the older kid's a little more of like, what's the right word? Like responsible or not ambit. It's hard when you start labeling people.
I know, because now I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like my brother is an achiever too. Like I'm not saying, you know, he's also he's rocked it in life in some ways better than me. So you know, I get it. It
sounded like you were saying nice things, that he is not as concerned with like approval or you know. So like it sounded nice what you said.
Yeah, but it's nice to know that there are a couple of achievers here. I mean, this is the achiever shed.
Yeah, it is, and that's a new word. Like, cause I go to therapy too. My wife, I've had a few therapists that I didn't really vibe with, but my wife and I go to like a one together, couples counseling, and she's just so amazing that's kind of like I'm unraveling a lot of that stuff there, and it's actually kind of helpful for me to have like be doing it with two ladies that are really in touch with their feelings, you know. But that word achiever and like status and stuff like that has come up there, and I've really had to like start to admit some of those things to myself, you know.
It's come up for me too. I went before my wife and I got married. We met with a minister who was a family friend of her family's, and a wonderful, wonderful woman. And we don't do couples therapy, but we just had a few sessions of talking through stuff together, and it was incredible the realizations we had about the two of us, you know, what we connect why we connect. Right. I mean, I think it's sort of like, it's almost like meditation with another person there.
Yeah.
Like stepping outside of your life. And it doesn't like, that's the other thing. I'm not talking about any sort of crazy trauma I need to get through, but just talking about your daily life and just little things and, can be useful, as far as therapy goes, just talking about therapy and why it's useful and it doesn't have to be anything scary.
Yeah. Do you have is there certain goals with it, or are there certain reasons that you seeking more peace in life or something like that?
Just anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like run of the mill, kind of always buzzing with thoughts and negative thoughts. And it actually started where during the pandemic I'd done therapy earlier in my life, but during the pandemic, just with, I'm a very social person, very extroverted. Without having those outlets, I was going nuts. And actually what started happening is I have tinnitus in one of my ears, and it got terrible to the point where I had to go to the doctor. And
a ringing?
Ringing sound? Yeah. Which stems from a duck hunting incident, actually.
That's the classic.
So I'm in touch with my feelings, but I also shoot birds.
That's great. That's America. We need both.
I'm right there with you. Actually, I haven't shot a bird since this day.
Wow.
Incidentally. So I go to the doctor and explain the situation, and he suspects there's some allergies involved closing up the ear, which made the tinnitus worse, which was, he ended up being right about that. But he also saw my blood pressure was pretty high for a 30-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, you probably got some anxiety. And I readily admitted that I did. So he referred me to an audiologist and a therapist, and or just like a talk therapy.
Talk therapy, yeah.
And he wrote in the referral that there's a ear ringing involved and gunshot. So I go to the therapist the first time, and she thinks I had this gunshot trauma.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
She's like, "Oh, we could do all these different techniques." And I'm like, "Oh, no. It was my friend. It was an accident. It's all good."
Just saw gunshot on the page. Okay.
Yeah, right. No, she was kind of geared up for that. I was like, I just kind of want to talk about how I've been sitting in the same chair every day for 3 months, But that's how it started, and it was I had a short fuse at the time, and there were definite things to work through. So you asked why. There was some particular issues, but just kind of going through everyday life. We're not meant to live this way, the way we're living. So anxiety is just a part of life now. Yeah,
I mean, I was diagnosed with anxiety last year, which is kind of interesting because I always thought it was more ADHD. My kid has ADHD, and the list of it's just everything is exactly me my whole life, and then all the things you can do to help. I'm like, wow, this is But then they were like, you have anxiety, and then I was like, I thought it was gonna be ADHD, and they were like, well, we could just change it to. They were like, it's kind of almost this, which still doesn't really make sense to me, but I guess. I had a very stressful job at that time too. So that might have, before this job, I had an extremely stressful job. So I was just riddled with anxiety.
Job related.
Yeah. I worked for a startup where it was just insane. Just not ever cushy for 1 second.
And that bled into your being.
And almost destroyed my family life and all that. So, but actually it brought out so many, it was, I wouldn't have changed that because getting to the point of nearly having a nervous breakdown over it made me realize okay, I don't need to make the biggest amount of money I can make and have the most rock star job. I can maybe find something that puts my life in balance.
So you pressed the achiever button.
Yeah. And that's the last time I'll do it that way. I might still continue to try to overpress it with my artistic stuff, but yeah, for a career where it's your family's medical care and income, it was just too high stakes. And I was this is not. I'm very happy with the job I have now. It's very cool. It's the right amount of cool shit, but also chill.
So, and you've worked. Someone else mentioned that this was not your first stint with.
Yeah.
Right.
I worked in the building before.
Yeah.
As a contractor. The place we work now, NKICS, like always looked like the most amazing, and it is. I was like, I might come back to work there, but we used to have to be in those cubicles all day, every day. It was so much worse then. And I was like, I'll never come back here. This is like my soul is dying in this fluorescent light. And so it was a big, last year for me to actually even just go back into the building was kind of a hard decision.
It was just last year?
Yeah, I've been back like just a year last month. But it's been really cool. We're mostly remote-ish. And NKICS is awesome.
We've got a nice little row of cubes. I mean, by nice, I mean the people in them are nice and cool and fun.
Everyone is great. It's such a different group of people with NKICS than it was like feds or,
It's a different thing.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. So one thing when you talk about, your family's health care, one thing that you mentioned, as I get nearer, again, hopefully, to the point of having children, I think my focus, I get more motivated, and it's not for the status or for the achievement of it, but like, making some money is nice.
Yeah.
For not necessarily for me, and I'm not saying I'm this like incredibly enlightened, don't need money type of person, but you start thinking about like, oh, you know what, you need money for things for your kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, does that change the way you think about your career? Maybe shifting more towards thinking about making decent money, but not for the status of it. Did that change the way you think about it?
Yeah, it does. It's and having like good health care and just a consistent paycheck is good. Like, kids are so expensive. I support 4 people with my salary, so it's definitely like, yeah, there's a lot there, but it's also like my kids just got like a charter school. You know what that is? It's like you don't have to pay more for it, but it's definitely they came up in the lottery, so they've just been switched to this cool charter school, and it's like even though it's still free, it's definitely a lot more wealthy people because there's no buses. Like, it's a certain type of person demographic that's like, I can find this school that's not the one. I can pick up my kids. It's just like they're in school with like really rich kids now, and I see the birthday parties and stuff, and I'm like, there's nothing worse I could do for my kids than make them like have a really entitled rich childhood too. It's like, so that's like, I think it's good to be, I see. Yeah. Like, so like I took a pay cut on this job, and so we had to kind of scale down, and I'm like, that's good.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, cool.
Y'all don't just get to have like a bunch of nice shit all the time. You got to like learn how to work. You got to.
That's good. All right. I see that now.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
I would like more money for me though, because
this achievement shed.
Pizza, this is the greatest thing. Yeah. I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
I really just invited you over to brag about my achievement shed.
All the tricks and trades and hobbies I'm looking at. There's a lot of achievement going on in here.
Yeah, my wife does all the power tools. I just hit drums and play guitars and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I guess kind of what I was thinking about is whether. Well, of course they do. I mean, you change through life, but whether certain ideals change towards more practical, like, hey, I have a family now, sort of viewpoint, like where maybe you might apply certain, like, say for me, if I'm, okay, I can study climate change and I can do it in a certain way that maybe has more impact. But doesn't pay a certain. Maybe I'm willing to, change some of those ideals because, hey, I just need some money to raise a family.
Yeah, for sure. That way. Yeah, and it gives me more energy I'm not pressured to work 60 hours a week at a startup with a bunch of people that don't have kids, so I have more bandwidth to be available with my kids.
60 hours a week.
Present with them. Yeah. I mean, they say it's 40, but it's just so competitive and crazy.
Was that based around here?
It was remote, based in Iowa, actually. But there were some people here. It was just all fully remote. But also, I mean, I worked with the most insanely motivated, intelligent, bleeding edge young. So I'm still coasting on how much I learned, even though I felt like a fraud and I was stressed out every day. I was like, oh, the cloud, okay, like I learned all this stuff that I've been able to kind of come back to the center, and so it worked out well.
I think one of the coolest things about NKICS is the willingness to take some of those bleeding edge technologies and apply them to climate science. I mean, that's what excites me the most about what we do and what I do.
Yeah.
And I think that is not common in the science world, especially academic science world.
Yeah, I mean you're on that like the membrane between the worlds, which is the most valuable. You can go talk to the science people, and you can talk to us software nerds, and we understand you. Like that's so important, not to be siloed.
And it's exciting. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say it. I'm excited to be in this role and where it goes. I mean, even something like being willing to, as an academic institution, which we, are, to do as much business with AWS, a for-profit company. Gasp.
Yeah.
Right. Even that's sort of a cultural shift, a new cultural bridge that I think isn't maybe as unique as it once was, but I think still is fairly rare.
Yeah.
I think when I talk about the previous university I was at, talk about AWS with these people back there, I think there's sort of a cultural hesitance to engaging with a for-profit company.
Oh, interesting.
Which is back again to like our silo thing.
Yeah.
Not knowing that if you combine the two forces, the what you can do with it is really incredible. And NKICS is an example of that.
Yeah, like why try to like maintain your own hardware? Like AWS is right now they're just crushing that. Why would you spend so much time trying to patch your own servers and all that? I've felt similarly. I'd never necessarily because of like prefer profit is like immoral, but like I feel like academia sometimes people are like, well, Ryan just wants to play with all the new shiny stuff because like developers just want it. And maybe there even is some truth to that, but that's kind of a thing where I've just back in this environment now, I'm like, okay, it's not enough they're not just going to assume, they don't just know that Cloud and React are good. Like you have to really kind of, like I need to work on like how to talk to science people in a way that's not threatening or not, I don't know. I can sense that there could be a gap there.
Can you think of an example right now, or is it maybe not one that actually happened, but like, is it something where, a scientist is coming to you with a problem and you might have a more efficient solution, or is it where you are coming to the scientist and asking for something, or do you have any more specifics of how you can go with that?
For me, it's like it's not acceptable to run a web application that's like over a decade old just because it's like, there's security reasons, there's scale reasons, like, but there's this hesitancy to like give somebody a year to build something that's going to eventually save more time in the long run. But it's like, we got to get this done this week right now. So just patch the old, just add more duct tape and chewing gum to the old one. So that's the thing that I've come up against a lot. And
that might not be a scientist thing though.
Yeah, that might just be like just
business, not wanting to change, not having the resources to change.
But the weird thing is like with the climate, it's like, it's the exact same thing. It's like, we got to invest in renewable. We can't just go like, well, what's the cheapest way to drive a truck across country today? So it's like, it's the same problem. It's like people are kind of bad at thinking long term. And I think software is like maybe not as valued there as it should be, like, which is, I hope that I can be part of that change. It's almost like science is the real shit and software is going to serve that. It's like,
I don't know. I mean, because a lot of the problem in climate science too is that people might not want solutions. I mean,
say more.
Yeah, and I don't want to overstate this point because it's not, but like, describing the problem, and I'll put it this way, the people who are studying the problem and describing why we have climate change, it's rare that person is also on the side of researching solutions. So, it's not that the person studying the problem doesn't want there to be a solution. It's just not their responsibility.
They're putting their energy into just broadcast, measuring how bad it is. And that's something we've talked about before too, where it's like we do these big websites where it's like you can read for 24 hours straight about exactly how we're fucked with diagrams and charts. And it's like, who's going to, I mean, you guys are, you're probably right. I mean, I'm sure you're right, but it's like, it's not enough to just be like, there can almost be kind of a smugness. And as you can see, it's like, yeah, but what are we going to do? And like, what normal person, I start to shut down just doing the CSS for the site because I'm looking at it being like, why am I even trying to, we're all going to die tomorrow.
Well, some people do like to, I think, self-flagellate by reading 24 hours of why we're fucked. I really think that some people like that.
Yeah.
But right. It's like, who is the audience for this?
Yeah.
We are making these reports that are supposed to be, more accessible to the layman. But like, what is the layman going to do?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
And it's so politicized. It's like, how many people, I wonder what percent of people, like, I believe climate change is real and it's like one of the biggest problems we have. But I mean, I wonder what percent of people in our country feel that way or in the world. And then, it's like,
well, what percentage of people are
do?
like, I'm unsure about climate change. I'm going to read the National Climate Assessment and then form my views based on that.
Yeah, cancel my month. I'm going to just
maybe that was too strong a statement I just made, but the problem is, what else do you do? I mean, so like, what is the way to address it then, if not to make reports readable to the general public? I mean, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, it's true.
So like, I'm not bemoaning or besmirching or whatever the actual.
Either. But just because you did that doesn't mean you solved the problem. It's like, so it's like, I don't know. Yeah. And that's having kids. That's the thing too. It's just like, well, geez, I mean, it'd be nice if there's a planet still.
I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
That's nice. I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
I am.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I am. I think, like anything, climate science can be used as a tool for power. And this can be on either side of since people like to talk about the left-right divide, that can be used on either side. Yes, either side, both sides. The truth is somewhere in between. We have figured out, it sounds silly, but, humans figured out indoor plumbing. People's shit in the streets killed a lot of folks.
Yeah.
That was a huge problem.
Yeah.
We figured that out. Climate science, a little more complicated. Thankfully, we have the tools, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to figure it out. I think the pessimism that can come out of thinking otherwise is more dangerous.
Yeah. I think that, and like the psychological implications, like at the school that my kids are at now, which is a very progressive, cool school, like they're really focused on the environment and being global citizens. But like one of my kids is just really sensitive to like scary movies and stuff, and they were like showing this video. They were like, the environment's screwed. They like cut open a fish and there's plastic in the fish, and they were like, look in the fish. And she was like, started crying.
That. That's bad.
Like, I don't know that that's really going to help her solve these problems later.
It's not.
I think you're traumatized. Like she's paralyzed with fear. So
I agree.
Telling people
not good
isn't the same as yeah.
I mean, we've faced problems as a human species before. I mean, that's the other thing is like, so maybe I've mentioned this to you, but the UN has this list of global priorities. It might even be like global sustainability priorities. I don't know the exact title. But if you had to guess, where is climate change in that ranking?
I would not feel confident about this guess that I know this, but I would hope it'd be like top 3. Number 1?
12th.
Really? Wow.
So I think what's interesting is, you know, there are in some parts of the world there are significantly more pressing matters.
Right. Yeah. Just trying not to
Hunger,
get
poverty,
starve or assaulted or whatever.
tropical diseases,
Yeah.
women's rights. And this is not to belittle the issue of climate, but there's a lot out there, you know. So yeah, don't that sounds almost more pessimistic. Like you think climate change is all we got, but it's like
some other shit's gonna get you before that does.
No, it's just sort of like sometimes the hyperfixation on climate as like a way to view everything in the world can make us forget some of the progress that has been made on some of these issues that we need to continue helping other places across the world with.
Right.
So anyways.
Yeah, there's a real dark thought that comes to mind here for me, which is like, I've been trying to make a bit out of this because it's just like right in that place where I'm serious, but it sounds horrible. But it's like, I believe that overpopulation is our main problem. I mean, like when I was born, the 4 billion people were on the planet. Now it's 8. Like it's doubling is not. So obviously like everybody that's alive now is cool. Like I'm not suggesting any sort of
sinking cruise ships.
Yeah, nothing like that. They would be the ones though. It'd be the cruise people for sure.
That's a Bill Burr bit. Before you go too much further.
Okay. Yeah. Is
Sorry.
that the orcas? Is that the?
No, he just talks about if he were to do it, he would just start sinking.
Yeah,
cruise
so he's
ships.
talked about that too. But so it's a funny thing because it's also like that. I mean, honestly, like I think that like you look at just all the parameters of the equation, and it's really just like people. You know, people just consuming and burning up. But we kind of have enough stuff where if we got it down back down to 1 billion, like I think that would be the major part of the equation.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah. But how do we do that? You can't tell people they can't have kids. I don't think that's right.
Here's another question.
Killing people's wrong. I want to just throw that in
what's
there
that?
too. I'm not advocating killing anyone, but you go ahead. Sorry.
What kind of achievement are you going for here? So the most recent round of population projections.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, this field is rapidly evolving.
Yeah.
So I think the UN's, I don't want to get too specific because I don't remember the exact number, but the UN's most recent population projections are for a maximum to be reached in about 2080 and for a decline after that.
I've heard this before.
And
I love it if it be true.
Oh, it's definitely. And every new study that comes out moves that maximum lower and earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think our biggest problem is plummeting birth rates.
Wow.
The opposite.
Oh.
So the birth rates across the world are like plummeting.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually kind of afraid of that. Like,
Really?
what's going on with that?
I mean, even if it was just like 1 million people, though, like, I mean,
Well, you know,
if people just stop having babies, like some children of men thing, and then it was like, well, we had our time, like that seems.
well, I think like that's going to happen in some countries.
Wow.
Like they're far below replacement rates.
I mean, what a great problem to have. There's not enough people because
Well,
like if you look at the 20th century, because people tell me this when I say this, they're like, yeah, but it's it's going to go down because we're going to get it all, and I just look at the exponent like population of the 20th century, and it's like, I'm like,
the growth rate is already slowing.
is it?
Yeah.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's amazing because it's like using the past as the predictor. It's just like it's about to just be like a vertical line of just like.
The growth maximum has already peaked and it's already starting to level off.
Wow. I mean, that seems great. I'm really
well. It's bad for economies because if you have a bunch of people that are older than the average,
and that's a problem because
that's a big problem.
How do we get ourselves into this situation, which I'm now in because I have retirement, where it's like in order to survive and be succeeding, we have to constantly keep.
Well, I mean, you always have to have young people to support old people, even if you didn't have the stock market.
Yeah.
Even if we were all just living in the woods.
Right.
The people who are older are going to need help from the folks that are younger.
Well, that's interesting. So it's almost like the idea that your old people would live with you and you take care, like wipe their ass. Like we're kind of doing that with
stocks.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way. It's like it's a metaphorical.
But obviously there's some like accounting involved, that can be probably smoothed over and made better, I guess. But no, I don't know. I mean, I guess the other thing about that is, look, I mean, we're talking about population numbers and how easily you can come at it from two angles and make a pretty strong case.
Yeah.
Now, there's probably experts that could tell us we're both wrong.
Yeah.
But it also changes quickly. I think I mean, a lot can change. A lot can change quickly with a lot of these topics. And I definitely don't feel like I'm an expert, but I do like just talk. Like, I remember like my dad and like every old man that was ever in my life would just always kind of sit there like, the world, I have my theories, and now I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, the world, and I'm starting to become like, I know,
you have your just crazy, like you're like not even educated enough to be, but you're still just like, I don't know, there's something, it's like protect my family instinct or what it is, but I'm like at the age where I do think a lot about that stuff, and I want my kids to be all right. Like I think another top one for me is just divisiveness. Like I think
I agree.
That's like maybe
totally agree.
Which is why like I think it is progressive to go to a brewery and talk with a bunch of liberals and then go hunting. Like I think that is one of the most progressive things you can do, is to try to like cross-pollinate between these siloed groups that we're just getting like,
totally
pitted against each other.
And sometimes I think that's even our country actually has a long history of artificial divisions being kind of imposed. And you can take more charitable and less charitable views of why that is, some people would say that it's, a way to pacify the masses who are screwed by capitalism.
Yeah. That'd
be one way to approach it. So you want to make sure that the proletariat, as it were, was divided along something like race.
And the kings are up there in their towers like, ha, 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 look at them.
Yeah, quite literally. Bread and circus,
Doesn't sound untrue.
I agree. But it also could just be like, it's electoral politics. We have two parties.
Yeah.
You're going to grab, constituencies are shifting, the working classes with this party, and then 50 years later it's with another party, and then, the intelligentsia is here, then it's here, and then blah, 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 unions are this and that and the other. So I entirely agree that divisiveness is a problem, and sometimes it does feel like it's imposed, and like the messaging that you receive is not much of it is trying to unite or bring together across that divisiveness.
I mean, just you look at this election's prediction and then the last bunch. I think Obama's second term was the only time like I can remember where somebody won by more than 1%. I think. I mean, we got to fact check that, but I mean, and I think Bush won re-election with it. But I wonder if you look at all of the elections, like I don't think it was like down to less than 1%. And now it's just like 3 in a row.
I know.
I mean, what is happening?
I think about this too. You know what it reminds me of? Sports betting, where like the odds makers figure out exactly where to put the odds so the bets are exactly even on either side.
Right.
And that's where it's like hard not to think that how is this being like, what's being done here and that almost feels like its own version of bread and circus.
Yeah.
How do we make sure everyone is
like, is it
glued to your screens?
It's hard to imagine that somebody could even intentionally make that happen.
I know.
Like the people are like, it's like we're at this phase of like capitalism or just consciousness, whatever, and it's like we've drifted into this like yin and yang. It's like literally exactly half. It's like maybe in 100 years, like what is happening? Like it's just so
totally
it seems like
totally agree.
Like mathematically improbable. It's almost like it's what is, I don't know. I don't even have the words for it, but it's just I can't even. It really I think about it a lot.
I agree. I've thought about this too. I really have. It comes down to like 11,000 votes in Georgia.
Yeah,
you're like, really?
Yeah, statistically, you'd think that somebody's going to win like 51-49 at least. Like, I mean, well, the electoral college that gets its own,
Yeah, I know.
mind fuck, but yeah,
And then, yeah, I don't know. And sometimes the differences between the parties is like some in some issues very different, but in others you're like you're saying the same thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I noticed that the political commercials now don't even say what party either the antagonist or the protagonist are.
just people.
Yeah,
It's like
it just says a name and that they hate you.
yeah,
Vote
yeah.
for me.
yeah.
No party. No like, I don't know. Have you noticed that? It's just like they leave out that detail
hadn't,
altogether.
But that does sound true. It's just like this person's bad, this person's good, instead of being like team oriented. So yeah, I mean, it's honestly like it's I don't know. I just don't even. I was thinking about not even voting this time.
Me too.
But
I was thinking about. I wish I
I'm
could
gonna vote tomorrow because
So am I.
I
So
feel
am
like
I.
it would be wrong of me not to.
I'm
But
gonna
I
vote
just don't really. Yeah,
I don't either.
I'm just so tired of everybody shouting at each other. It's like I just want to not participate. But then I would hate myself for not.
I was just gonna say, if I could feel better about not voting,
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
yeah.
But I wouldn't feel good about that.
Neither would I. Unfortunately,
So I
My
feel
conscience-
the exact same way.
it will be nice. I hope it gets settled tomorrow and we can move on.
You know it won't.
Yeah, that doesn't seem likely, does
You know
it?
it won't.
Yeah,
I don't know, there's gonna be some hanging chads or
yeah,
hanging tads. And
yeah.
Brads.
Well, I will say that the hurricane really did give me a lot more faith in humanity, which is what I did need. Like back we were talking about, like listening to the Kiss Country
That's good.
station and hearing the people on, they'd be like, "Dude, I don't care which side of the politics you're on, we're gonna get you some water." And it was just like, yeah, all right, people are pretty cool.
Do you think that's lasting? Do you think?
I think it's already, but it's maybe that's what is the real us. It's like I heard that quote that I just love: the worst of times bring out the best in people, and it's a cliche, but I really I'm feeling that now. And but I also feel that when the internet comes back on and you're like, this Uber driver has been taking forever. Like as soon as it gets good again, like I become so shit. I'm just ready to just.
It's good to know that it's still there, though.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not
Right.
something that maybe we can be assholes to each other
Yeah.
on a regular day.
Yeah.
But to know that there's some sort of transcendence waiting if shit really hits the fan.
Yeah. I like that. You used my favorite word there, transcendence.
Transcendence. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's like waiting. It's like the sleeping giant, maybe.
Yeah, it'd be nice
shit
if that was out
hits
every
the
day.
fan. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think 1 month a year we should have to just flip it all off and help each other with water.
yeah, where does this all lead? I don't know. Damn.
We might have to solve that one next time, but you want to wrap it up on that note?
We can do that. I like that. We can transcend and wrap it up for next time.
Okay. Well, James, thanks for coming on. This is fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.